All right, everybody, welcome and thanks for joining us for today's History at High Noon Home Movies Veterans Day with special guest speaker Skip Elsheimer. Skip is the founder of AV Geeks LLC here in Raleigh, North Carolina. My name is Stacy and I handle adult education over at the museum. So whenever you sign up to join us for one of these History at High Noons, you and I will get to hear some incredible North Carolina stories and hear about some incredible people and what makes our state so special. We're so glad that you're joining us for today's program. This is just one of many exciting digital offerings available through MOH's History at Home initiative. So if you'd like to learn more about our program offerings or the initiative itself, we invite you to head over to our website at www.ncmuseumofhistory.org. Before we get started, we would like to take this opportunity to thank our North Carolina Museum of History Associates and Foundation for making today's program possible. Our associates and foundation provide crucial funding and support, which in addition to many other things, helps make programming like today's program happen. If you'd like to learn more about becoming an associates member, you can head over to their website at www.ncmoha.com. We would also like to thank those of you who graciously donated funds towards today's program. We do our best to keep our programs free to attend, but there are costs associated with keeping these series going. And we just continue to be so humbled by your gracious support of the museum and its programming. So thank you so much. Most importantly, we would like to take this opportunity to thank all the veterans out there. Your courage and dedication continue to serve as a source of inspiration, and we thank you for your service. A bit of a change in today's program flow. You are encouraged to ask your questions throughout the showing of the home movies today. If you don't feel comfortable asking your questions out loud, you can certainly type them into the chat function, but you are encouraged to ask them throughout the entirety of the program. Okay, so it's my honor to introduce today's speaker, Skip Elsheimer. As I said before, Skip is the founder of AV Geeks LLC here in Raleigh. In the early 1990s, he began collecting 16mm educational films, and now he has over 33,000 films in an archive here in Raleigh. He also acquired Telescene, Skip, I hope I'm saying that right, equipment, a variety of videotape machines and video digitizing equipment. He co-founded and has been hosting Home Movie Day in North Carolina since 2004 and would love to tour the country doing a Home Movie Day in every state. Okay, Skip, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Stacy, for having me. I love Home Movie Day. Home Movie Day is a day to celebrate home movies. It's something that generally happens in October, but I've always felt that any day could be Home Movie Day, so much so that I have a t-shirt that says Home Movie Day. And the reason why I like home movies, and we'll talk more about this as we watch them, is that home movies capture not only your family's history and what they did and how they dressed and what they ate and where they lived, but it's also the further you get away from when they were made, they become more culturally important and culturally significant because they capture what downtown looked like. They captured, what was the lay of the land at that time? How did we dress? What were the different ceremonies that we went through? Lots of things like that. So, Home Movie Day is wonderful. Veterans Day is also wonderful, and the fact that we coincide my presentation with Veterans Day is really quite something, because people in the military shot a lot of home movie footage, especially World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and later. They were able to take portable little cameras and travel with them and capture what they were experiencing, what they were seeing in different lands, and also what was happening in the military bases and around the military bases. So those become also very interesting and very culturally significant and historically significant. So the way we normally do Home Movie Day, actually, people in the comments, who's been to a Home Movie Day? Say yes, me. I'm waiting. I'm going to clear my throat a little bit. Anyways, there's going to be a lot of us watching Home Movie Days and me asking you questions and you talking about them. That's how we normally run Home Movie Day. And so let me go ahead and get started. All right. This first film came from the 1920s. And none of these are North Carolina specific. I should just say that right off the bat. These are home movies either from my family's collection or from home movie collections that I've digitized over the years. So this first one is from the 20s. And so I have a little bit of a backstory about the person who shot this. This was shot by George Struble, who was born in 1886 in Oregon. He graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1908 before moving to Pennsylvania to work at Bethlehem Steel, where he eventually became vice president. In addition to his 1920s travel films, his collection also contained a lot of commercial shorts and boxing films. He loved boxing films. So this is his family. And what I liked about Home Movie Day is we all contribute. We all can chime in and talk about what we're seeing, maybe posit like what time in the 20s. Sometimes people who are auto enthusiasts can say like, oh, well, that's a such and such model car. So this is visiting a military base. And I see that Stacy is allowing all of you to talk. She's giving the ability for people to talk. So just be aware that your mic is becoming live if you allow it. So as you can tell, like modern day photography, things can sometimes be out of focus. And so they probably had the wrong lens to capture the paratrooper. As happens, there's a Zeppelin. Some early tanks. So it's possible that this was a military base that had something for the public, and they did kind of a exposition and a demonstration. If anybody's a military buff, or they might be able to chime in on what some of this equipment is. Like what's a howitzer and what's a cannon and the distinction between the two. So these films were not recorded with sound. They didn't have a sound capability back in the 20s. This was shot on 16 millimeter film. And so this is all silent, but we can imagine how loud this would have been. And probably how much it smelled like diesel. Unfortunately, we don't have a sense of where this was shot, so we don't know what military base this was. He was based in Pennsylvania, so I don't know if he traveled to see this or if it was somewhere in Pennsylvania. Sometimes we're lucky and the cameraman will show a sign of the base. So what's great about this is the fact that this is almost 100 years old. This footage is motion picture imagery is more than 100 years old, and the fact that somebody shot this and it is at Library of Congress. There's a dog. So there's some more of his family. It's something we don't see a whole lot of. Oh, that's a good, yeah. So Tom says perhaps it was the Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland. We'll watch a little bit of dog footage to clear the palette for what we're going to see next. So this next one, I'm only going to explain just a little bit of it, and I'm going to let you, the audience, chime in on what you think that this is. I'm not sure of the date of this. It's probably 40s or 50s coming up. You can tell it's beautiful color. It's an aircraft carrier. And this is capturing kind of a unique ritual that the Navy, happens in the Navy. And we'll see if anybody can guess what that is. Either you can unmute your microphone and tell me, or you can type it in the comments. So you see there's a bunch of ships kind of convening in one location. And there seems to be getting ready for something. And this is what's fascinating about a lot of times when people run across home movies, they only have a can or a box that has little to no notes on it. Like sometimes if you're lucky, somebody's actually fleshed out what the film is about. But sometimes you have to be the detective and you have to figure out what you're seeing. And so this is some sort of convoy. Oh, it just kind of ended. Okay, well, it didn't really show it. That's frustrating. So, yeah, that's annoying. Basically, that was supposed to show a initiation of going over the equator. That's a big deal for naval folks, sailors, that anybody who goes over the equator the first time has to go through a ritual. It's very much hazing. This next film is special to me. Okay, good. So Steve Edwards, so the carrier was the USS Lake Champlain. This next film is also another aircraft carrier. This is the Forrestal, and this comes from my family's home movies. This was shot in 1967, and I know exactly what day it was shot, not based on my father's notes, but based on what happens in the film. This was May 20th, 1967. The Forrestal remained at Pier 12 Naval Operating Base in Norfolk until very early. This is from the ship's logs. Early May 20th, 3,500 board members, friends, and relatives of the Forrestal arrived to board the Forrestal on this clear, sunny Saturday for a family cruise. Friends and family members start arriving early for the exciting day. Soon the mooring lines were hauled in and the Forrestal began to get underway. After a special sea and anchor detail is secured, families walked around the hangar bays looking at various aircraft. Friends and family members were shown the mess deck, the berthing compartments of their sailors. Sailors took their guests to a small store and jewelry shop on the second deck. I walked up onto O2 level and showed them the forecastle. The size of the anchor chain links really impressed them when he told each link weighed 360 pounds. So I was alive then, but I was a wee baby. So I don't know if I was on this. I can't imagine that I was, but maybe. But in the distant memory, I remember seeing the deck. Yes, Tom. So supposedly this was a short excursion for family members. And so I don't know who shot this. I don't know if my dad shot this, or if my mom shot this, or if it was a friend of my father. So later, the destroyer USS Vogelgesang, I'm sorry, very poor pronunciation here, came alongside for the highline transfer. They watched the transfer from the starboard side. Ensign John F. Elsheimer, the 1st Division Junior officer, is being transferred over and back and forth from the destroyer because he is the Forrestal's most junior officer. Some officers have all the luck. So essentially, at the very end there, you saw him kind of bouncing back and forth between the destroyer. And the reason why is because he was the youngest one there. So it's pretty hilarious. So this is the next thing we're going to watch is a parade. It was the New York Army Victory Day Parade in New York City. And you can tell the film is flipped because ambulance is written backwards on the back. And so this was to celebrate, this was in 1946, and this was to celebrate our victory against, in World War II. And this is a phenomenal event. Let's see, I had it written down here somewhere. The parade was led by 13,000 members of the 82nd Airborne. 82nd was chosen as an all-American division to represent the U.S. Army at the end of World War II. The parade included Sherman tanks and other armored vehicles, such as self-propelled howitzers and a flyby of a formation of glider towing C-47s. The 82nd also participated in a Berlin victory rally as well. Some police. So again, we don't know who shot this, but they had a very steady hand and liked the nurses. But this is certainly something to honor all the veterans of World War II for their sacrifice and their contribution. There's some parade goers and some trash. I mean, it is New York City after all. Can anybody recognize where in New York City? Seen any all the streetcars? There's some Soviets who we were friends with at the time, Times Square. That's what somebody says. That float, holy cow. It's kind of like a giant Hitler skeleton playing drums on a horse. I love parades from the 40s and 50s. The floats are so phenomenal. Even the 60s, they're especially homecoming parades. And parades are interesting because not only do they show the people in the parades and they show what marching bands were wearing at that time, but they also show parts of cities. There's the air warden, civil defense air warden. They show sometimes who's participating in the. There's other organizations that don't exist anymore, or we're just getting started. Those are big, I believe those are big air raid sirens. I could be wrong about that. Somebody could chime in if they know something. These medical units, possible spotlights. Steve says that vehicle was possibly spotlights. There's was a sailor that was using a signal. I'm not sure, I can't remember the actual terminology, but that's how they would communicate from ship to ship if they didn't want to use radio. It would be a light that they would use to click on and off like Morse code, and so they could aim it. You saw it was like a gun, and then another person with binoculars would be reading it and transcribing what was being written. And of course, you didn't want to use radio if you were in a situation to where the enemy might be listening in.
Oh, Roger?
I don't know. Is that Roy Rogers? Yeah. Good eye. Good eye. NYU to the red, white, and blue. Look at this. This is quite something. This float coming up. I mean, it's like watching the Macy's Day Parade in a way. Holy cow, look at that. Is that a dragon? I mean, these are really quite something. And, you know, these were made one-time parade event. They might reuse them, but this was, you know, the big parade. Phenomenal. Decca Records employees. All right, so more marching bands. All right, we're going to change up the scenery a little bit. We're going to go to the Arctic. So this is a friend's uncle who basically was, I believe he was in the Navy, and he was stationed. He was in the Arctic. I'm not sure what type of ship he was on. This is from the 60s, mid 60s. Steve asked if it was very late 50s or early mid 60s. So this was during Vietnam. And it's possible this was an aircraft carrier as well. So this kind of captures a day in the life for these guys, you know. And that's what I like about when you have folks who are. I'm sorry, I'm trying to look up something here. You have folks who are just, you know, they have their camera, they have some downtime, and they're just looking to see. And so this is flights over, this might be a Subic Bay. So we're in a totally different place. This is a helicopter. That's up pretty high. Again, this was, even though this was shot in the 60s, there's no sound. But again, you can imagine how really, really loud that was to be in a helicopter with the door open, with the blades right above your head. So soldiers and folks in the military who captured had home movie footage, captured many, many things. Some that were, you know, just kind of day in the life, and some of them were actually historically very important. I didn't bring it to show, but there was a home movie of a someone who became a film director, Sam Fuller, who he was part of the Big Red One, big army group that actually went through and helped conquer parts of Germany. But they were also the ones that went into a concentration camp and and basically saw and documented the horrors of what was happening in those. And his film has actually been entered into the National Film Registry. It's really something. It's, you know, again, horrifying, but also there's this sense of they had the townspeople do. They had the townspeople actually go and get all the people who had passed in the concentration camp and give them funerals. So making them bear the responsibility for the horrors that were happening just outside of their town. It's really quite something. It's very stirring. I wouldn't show it because it's Veterans Day. So my stepfather, D. Hillier, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, excellent. So I'm going to show. Dee, tell us a little about where you served, how you served.
I was in outside of a place called Dong Ha, Vietnam. I was there from January 68 to February of 69. Was with 4th Battalion, 12th Marines, and the 3rd Marine Division. I was the logistics chief and the enlisted club manager at the same time, which was kind of a joke because we lived in dry rotted tents and didn't really have a club.
All right. So I've digitized your films and shown your films many times, but this is kind of a shorter version of what you of one of the larger reels. So
okay, there we go. Well, I'm seeing myself and not the film, Skip. There we go. Okay. Yeah, that's well, it went off again, but that's the picture of all the sandbags we filled, which was a daily routine. After we got off of work, we put in 16, 18-hour days most days. And we lived in tents that were, like I said, they were dry rotted. And when it rained, we got wet inside. Skip?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there it is again. Well, it keeps flipping on and off. I keep seeing myself instead of there it is. There's one of our outhouses. That's our outhouse that was brought in by helicopter. One of the guard bunkers. We were right below the DMZ. There I am trying out my new video camera, or Super 8 camera. I had a button that I could push. We were just doing silly things, throwing stuff back and forth just to pass the time.
So did you buy this camera specifically when you were in Vietnam, or did you have this?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I wanted to be able to film somewhere I was. War is funny, or not funny, but it's not all combat. We had a lot of periods of lulls, but we got hit with artillery most every day when I first got over there. That's one of our 155 howitzers. We had 18 M109s, which were 155 howitzers. There's Jonesy the mailman. Staff Sergeant O'Leary. The dust was terrible. We had one guard tower that was about 60 feet off the ground. The guy that worked for me fell asleep up there right before I left to come home and fell and broke his neck and died. And that's a joke right there. We had a major that was our commanding officer who made us fall in for a formation when he left, and we got hit as soon as we fell in, hit with artillery. That's one of our guns. I was trying to get it to fire, and there it goes.
So how loud was that?
I'm wearing hearing aids now. It was very loud. I slept in a tent about 100 meters from that. Little baseball activity. That shows a pretty good picture of our compound. Sergeant King, he was from North Carolina. That's the way we took our baths initially. Those are ammo boxes. And we were under attack in May and June. Well, that was short-lived. I thought that was when we got hit by an NVA division. Some of the Vietnamese women the countryside was very bleak. Not a lot of growth except for some short bushes and some trees. That's a C-130. That's the plane that took me in and took me out of Vietnam.
So Steve Edwards, who's one of the viewers, he commented, "This looks so much like the Central Highlands around Payaku and Kon Tum." That's where he was.
We were a long way from there. And I think this is a USO show that I went to with a cousin of mine who was actually in the Seabees in Dong Ha. And we went to a USO show that he invited me down for that. A lot of cheering and jeering at the women. These are from Australia. Wish I'd have had sound.
Yeah. Those men up front seem very polite.
Oh, yes. When the USO shows came in, Skip, we had to have armed guards to keep especially the women safe, because some of our guys went kind of crazy seeing them.
Right. So was there alcohol? Were people drinking during this, or was this?
No, not during this. The policy of the enlisted club was that each enlisted man could get 2 cans of beer a day. The staff NCOs, that would be staff sergeant and above, and the officers could drink beer and hard liquor, but the enlisted troops could only have beer and soda.
Were there was there kind of a black market of liquor being distributed or being made?
Oh yes, there was a black market, and one of the interesting things was that one of our guys bought a bottle of vodka and drank it and got sick as a dog. And what he ended up drinking was formaldehyde.
Oh.
The Viet Cong had drilled out the bottom of the bottle, filled it with formaldehyde, and then replaced the piece of glass that was cut out.
There you are.
This is going to Da Nang during the Tet Offensive. We actually went down there illegally to get beer and soda for our troops. This is going through one of the little villages outside of Da Nang. It was interesting because they were actually burying bodies alongside the road. I think if this goes on, you'll see that. It's been a long time since I've watched this. A lot of children in Vietnam. But it took
the reason why this is so jittery is because you're in the back of a
I'm in the back
truck.
I'm in the back of a 5-ton truck. The roads were not paved over there. At
Plus,
least not where we were.
I'm sure the suspension on the truck wasn't that great either.
Well, there's a bridge that got hit and taken out. The engineers would come in and put in pontoon bridges. That's what we're going across right now. We came under attack during this time. That's the bridge that was taken out by the enemy. We're actually getting shot at right now. Like an idiot, I kept filming. These buses would be loaded down with any number of people you can imagine. There they were trying to sell us alcohol. The kids were great salespeople.
So this seems like this was part of some sort of convoy. It was you and some other trucks.
Yeah, we were in a convoy with over 100 trucks. We had helicopters that fired support for us going down off and on. Every truck had people. We all had our rifles, and we rode in the back of the truck.
So were some of the trucks not military and some of them were
Here
just
I am. No, they were all military.
okay? So Graham, one of the viewers, asked, "How could you trust what they were selling you, um, especially alcohol? I mean, you have that story about someone drinking formaldehyde, but
Well, we were told not to buy it, but of course guys did. And that was the one with the formaldehyde was the only incidents that I heard of where someone actually got sick.
so Tom asks, at some point, did the military start trying to censor or review what you were filming or taking photos of? So was
Not
at
at
any
all.
point?
No, not at all.
Okay.
You see the damage from a bomb. There's the burials right there, right alongside the road.
Oh, there's a temple.
You know, this is a little smoother. We were actually on a paved road at this point. This was just outside of Da Nang. If I remember correctly, we were about 110 kilometers from Da Nang, north of Da Nang.
So, Dee, when you shot this footage, you knew that your family was going to watch it, right?
Yes,
So, did you purposely not film things because you didn't want to?
I tried to film more of the positive things on purpose. The kids were precious. We often gave them our sea rations. Yeah, you can tell we're in civilization now. This is in outside of Way. You can see how shot up the building is. The Tet Offensive went on for a good while in early '68. Here's one of the helicopters that supported us.
Oh, somebody's jumping off a pier.
Vietnamese kids having fun. And they would bathe down there at the river. They'd take their kids down there and put them in the water and bathe them. This, if I'm not mistaken, is Way. It's spelled Hue. And there's some of the South Vietnamese Army troops. That's the flag of South Vietnam. There was a major battle in Way. And I thought that was interesting. Esso.
Hmm.
Little dated. And a shell. That's one of two dogs that I saw there in 13 months. Unfortunately, they ate dogs for food.
So, how long was this convoy? Like, how long did it take for you to get to where your destination was?
It took us a full day to go 110 kilometers, which is probably about 80 or 90 miles, if I'm correct. Here we are getting ready to leave to go back to our unit in Dong Ha, and fixing to see a really cute scene. They were trying to sell pornography to some of our guys.
They had you guys figured out.
Yep. A lot of white sand in Vietnam. That's the High Fung Mountain. we have to go over that to get back home. Here I am coming back. Someone was filming me.
You're a little skinny guy.
Yeah, I lost 50 pounds over there.
Steve Edwards says, some things didn't change regardless of where the convoy was starting in Vietnam. Always the same business ventures along the side of the road.
Oh, yes. A lot of wheeling and dealing. This was a common sight down in Da Nang and even up where we were. And you'd see 2 and 3 people on these motorbikes. We called Da Nang the world because it was so different from where we were. That's a cemetery. This little kid is so cute. We gave him some pineapple juice. There he goes with the big can.
It was interesting. That was a Hindu grave. That's why I had a swastika on it.
Like I said earlier, there were kids everywhere. Here we are. Here's the convoy going back up. That's the South China Sea.
So Ed Barrows.
There's a truck that didn't make it. I'm sorry.
Oh, Ed Barrows said there was a program in the Air Force in 1964 that prohibited taking private pictures, but it was mostly ignored by quite a few of us.
Yeah, I never heard anything about not taking pictures. I was out with my commanding officer and was taking pictures, and he didn't object at all. This is the High Fung Pass that we're going over. It was really scary. When we went south to Da Nang, it was very foggy and you couldn't see the road, and the driver actually had his right 2 wheels up on the side of the mountain to keep them going off. There's no guardrail. And I think I've got a shot in a minute coming up here where you can see how close we were to the edge of the road. Looking back at the convoy. Notice that the trucks are spaced out. You don't ever want to bunch up over there.
So this is in case there was a rocket attack or some sort of...
Exactly. If we got hit with artillery or with small arms fire.
So in watching these films now, Dee, is this something that helps? Because I know you went through a lot of trauma there. A lot of soldiers did. Does seeing this footage again help you kind of process what you went through, or is it kind
Actually, it does. It's been, like I said, it's been a while since I've watched any of this, but as I mentioned, you know, we had a lot of action over there, a lot of fighting, but there you can see the edge of the road. There were days and times within days when it was peaceful, and you know, war is a crazy thing. You sit around waiting to get attacked again, or to go and attack them. But this was a very successful convoy. We ended up with 27 pallets of beer and soda.
Is that the only thing that you went and got was beer and soda?
That's what we got. It was an illegal trip because the only thing during the Tet Offensive that you could go to Da Nang to pick up was essential supplies. And what we did was take canvas tents and covered what we took.
For beer and soda and Coca-Cola, probably. Wow.
But the interesting thing was General Davis, who was the commanding officer of 3rd Marine Division, found out through the grapevine that we had beer and soda. And during the Tet Offensive, we were cut off from most everybody. And he actually came up in person and met me. And we gave him beer and soda for his troops at division. And he told the captain who was with him, taking notes, he said, "Captain, find out what Sergeant Hilliard needs and give him whatever you can within reason." And we greatly appreciated that.
So I've seen this footage many times and transferring it and then showing it and having you talk about it. And this is the first time I've heard you talk about that this was an illegal mission to get beer and soda. Like, this is the most elaborate beer run down to the convenience store I've ever seen.
No, no.
Well, Dee, thank you so much for sharing your films and your stories. I wanted to have at least one person be able to kind of talk about what we were seeing today, and I appreciate you taking your time and sharing with us that. And I'm sure everybody that's tuned in is also very appreciative. And we're beginning, I think, to wrap up because I have another show I have to do in like 4 minutes.
Okay. There I am, dirty after a long trip. Thanks, Skip, for showing that. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your service. Any messages? Because not only were you in the Marines, you're also a minister. Any kind words for the folks tuning in about veterans?
I think, it means a lot to the Vietnam veterans, especially that people are now recognizing us and not treating us like they did when we came home. And for all veterans, I wish them a happy Veterans Day and a time of meaningful reflection. Say hi to your mom. Or
hi, Skip.
Hi, Mom.
We're sitting in a car in a rainstorm outside of Walgreens.
Wow, that's hilarious. Okay, well, there you go. Excellent.
Oh,
All right, I think we're going to wrap this up. Stacy, do you have any closing things you want to say?
I do. Thank you, Skip, so much for sharing this incredible glimpse into the lives of these soldiers that many of us would never have seen otherwise.
what I can try.
What a wonderful and different way to honor our veterans and their experiences this Veterans Day. Thank you to all those of you who came out. We really appreciate you joining us for today's program. We hope that you'll join us for our next History at High Noon, Hip Hop Diplomacy with Dr. Mark Katz and Junius House, Brickhouse, Director of Next Level. That will be later this month, so we hope to see you then.
I have already written a check. Are you in the office now?
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.